grew up between three cultures, you could say, in a way. Mexico, Italy, and New York, the US. I studied philosophy. I actually knew that I wanted to study architecture before finishing, but I wanted to finish the program before studying architecture. And also when I started architecture, I kind of started exhibiting as an artist with an art collective called the Bruce High Quality Foundation also. And so I kind of knew that I was going into art practice before finishing architecture, but I decided to finish architecture as well. The first semester of architecture school, I took a photography class with Walid Rad. It was like a very important class for me, you know, kind of really opened me to a way of thinking and practice that I had not thought of before. You know, like the work of photographic work of Vito Acconci, like creating archives, Sophie Cal and Chris Burden, and so sort of like the photograph as a document. It was a really, really interesting class. So I think that kind of was a starting point for me. The Bruce High Quality Foundation is a collective that kind of started with a group of friends we met in school, and we started doing sort of guerrilla style interventions into the city and into sort of art world contexts. And then it kind of became more formal and structured. We also started an independent art school that ran for many years, and was kind of like the whole project was like a community building project. You could say that it was about creating an environment with where people could like gather and generate projects that were like very like large scale, beyond the, you know, that required many people in order to be realized and things. So my first show as a solo artist after leaving the group was called Transitional, you know, which was kind of, the idea was also sort of semi-autobiographical, that I was transitioning from one sort of way of working to another. And so, and the actual theme of the show was the vocabulary of construction sites in the city of New York, you know, which are kind of all over the place, you know, and they're kind of related to gentrification and the changing of the city, you know, so they have like ambivalent, you know, good and bad kind of connotations. But there are these weird spaces that, you know, are only there temporarily, and they kind of like mark the end of, you know, things and the beginning of other things. And the way that the city is, you know, New York really has a very strong sense of constant change and movement, and things don't last. So yeah, the work is called Arquitectura Blanda, which is like soft architecture. And it's a series of works that I've made before as well. And with these in Sao Paulo, coming to Sao Paulo and seeing, you know, how like the city center is, you know, you see these felt blankets all over the place, you know, on the streets, you know, under monuments, just piles of these blankets, sometimes abandoned, sometimes being, you know, used by the homeless population. And So and sometimes they make like improvised little tents and things like that. And this felt has an important, historical reference as well with Joseph Beuys, and his use of felt as he was rescued by Tartar indigenous community that wrapped him in felt to like keep him warm after his plane crashed. In this case, I thought that the arch is kind of like in all the cases that I've made the arch, it's kind of like trying to build a symbol of hope, which is like this, bridge or something, like a structure that also defies logic, because you don't expect a structure, an arch, to be able to be built with blankets and fabric. And so the fact that this structure is possible is like, like a kind of like a hopeful thing. It's also impossible, in some way, These books I found, they're secondhand old books, that that are, discussing Brazilian economy from, let's say they're not that old, but maybe from the 60s to today, something like that. And so they're discussing the Brazilian economy in the 20th century. They're discussing the creation of the real, exploitation of natural resources, mining, and the Amazon, and what resources they can be, extracted from this. And I became interested in how sort of economic systems are like, and the value of money is like a fiction. It's an invented value that it's not based on anything real. So it's kind of like a mythology that we accept as a real value, real existing thing, but it doesn't. It's almost, it's a belief system almost, because actually. A monetary system is kind of almost as if it were like the way that a society might accept a sort of religion or something, like in ancient times or something, that they just accepted that it was real. One of the most prominent examples of how that's true is the creation of the real in Brazil, which was really just like, they had a currency that was completely out of control, and they just, these economists, like getting drunk in a bar one night, were like, what if we just, like invent a new coin, and say that it has this amount of value, and it really just started like that, and they were able to stabilize the whole country's economy by just creating this new story. So, they create this coin, and they call it the real, which is like the real, but it's not. It's, completely fake, invented. So, but just by calling it that, it's supposed to like give confidence, and security to people so that they want to use it, and then it really did work. It created the one of the best booms, economic booms that this country has had in a long time. There's like a kind of soothsaying that happens with economy, where you kind of like try and read the graphs and read the signs to try and get a sense of what is going to come and what is a good investment, what is a bad, and where to go. So it's kind of like this, and so I started creating various works, but these graphs with pipes, and they were kind of originally inspired by like children's jungle gyms, because I felt that like the physical exercise of like climbing pipes and like like pulling yourself up and around, and like it's kind of like the mental exercise of trying to you know, assimilate the information from the books and absorb it, you know, and so it's like the pipes are kind of like these channels, and they connect, you know, information from one place to another, like a graph too, you know, and so it kind of becomes this system that is trying to like process information and data and give, you know, like answers and things, you know, and like an understanding, a reading, you know. There's a really nice dialogue between all the works, you know, like the light piece, which is called Constellation in Red, you know, I think has a really strong dialogue with Deborah's fabric piece. I don't know what it's called. But it's, you know, it's like a night sky as well. So, you know, the constellation and the night sky, and with the, you know, so I think really works very well together. And also, you know, Deborah's mobile and Mateus's sort of throne, you could call it. The way that they are these sort of like precarious structures, you know, I think really relate to the pipes and the arch, you know, these they're like suspended systems, you could say, you know, you know, and sort of, I think those political undertones of Mateus's work, I think are very much connected to the political undertones of the arch and the financial system as well. So I think you know, there's really, you know, and then Deborah's mask, you know, relates very much to like the selfie stick culture thing happening with Mateus's work. So I think there are many ways in which they connect, you know, absolutely.
Yes.